Hello. Yep. So I'm going to continue talking about some more TypeScript today. Last video was about just getting started with TypeScript and Ember. That was just installing it and starting to write some TypeScript. Today I'll just go over some just general Ember concepts with TypeScript. So we'll go over controllers and routes and using services. So yeah, let's jump in. Let's start with a route. I'm going to create a application route. And by the way, if you don't know how to set this up, just check out my last video. Here I'm not going to create a template because I already have one. And as you'll see again, it creates a application.ts in the routes directory. So yeah, let's jump in there. I just remove this part because I don't use it. And if you do, please let me know how you use it. So we'll use Ember fetch and we'll pull down some data. This is installed by default in the new app, and I use the model hook. Let's see. Found an API here that's public and basically returns the change log. So I have the change log for Ember itself. Let me do that here. And actually I'm gonna change this because you cannot fetch create it or as a JSON, and we know the model hook allows for a promise to be returned, so I'm just returning the promise here. So I gotta do an wait here. So yeah, so that's our model. As you can see, if I hover over model, I get promise any. So right now it doesn't know what's returned from here. We could define something, which you can do export interface. We'll just call it change log. And looks like we have a few properties in here. I'll just add a couple of the properties just as examples. Here. Body is so we have contents, and that's an array. So contents, and we'll do content array, and I'll create another interface. Content, and that will have version is a string, and let's see here. It's date, the date, and content and body. Sorry, string as well. So that's the basic layout. So here I can do. So I'm actually going to leave that as is. Actually, I'll just do change log. I think this might say that it wants promise. Yeah, so we'll wrap that in promise because we have the async. So that doesn't give us much. So now we should get a result that'll go on the model in the controller. Let's see here. So I'm going to create a controller. Give that a second. Yep, same thing. We have TS file. I'm going to delete this again. And if you notice here, their controllers can be injected, and so the way that's handled in TypeScript right now is that it's the instance or the class is defined in a registry. So application. So this is the under the Ember controller registry or module in the registry there. That's kind of, so you just leave it there. You kind of ignore it, and it's generated for you. If you write your own from .ts file for a controller or a service, I believe you have to define this yourself. So that's why I use generators generally. So here we can do a model, and we can do change log, right? So we're defining our type now. So we can't find change log. So if I click on that, hit the little balloon here, and you can do import. So I'll do this one because that's it's not a relative. And notice here it says property model has no initializer, is not definitely assigned to the constructor. And since we know that this is set on that controller load, we can add an exclamation here. Save that. Let's see what's it saying now. Unexpected token. Okay. Interesting. I wonder if I have some ESLint issues. So this is ESLint complaining. This is not a TypeScript thing. I'll have to figure that out for next time I record. So ignore that. Yeah, there's no issues there. And now, if we want to use this later on, so if we do get last version, we can do contents and then 0.version. So already you can see that gives us a lot of flexibility and just helps us, especially VS Code. I think this is the same for Vim and for most popular editors out there. So let me save that, and we'll grab that value from our template here. Let's see. I'm not running the app. What am I doing? I have the port already in use, so I am running the app. 4200. I have an error possibly. Failed. Okay, there's a CORS issue. So I'm going to, I guess the API is not public. Well, we can fake our data here. Was not expecting that to happen, but let's see. So I'll return. Let me go back here and I'll just copy this. And we can is it gonna change log? Okay, so it gives us, it doesn't know what type it is. And we can actually put the type here. And looks like it's giving us some errors. So my types are actually wrong in the fact that they were, so this is actually a good catch. I typed this incorrectly. So these are actually strings, not an actual date object, which is understandable as JSON. And let's see what we have here. Never read, never used. Okay, so I'm just going to collapse this so it's easier to read, and we'll return the changelog here. Okay. I mean, in this case, we can remove the async and the promise wrapper here. But I mean, if you were doing this in a real app and the API was working, you would keep those. So let's see, refreshed. There we go. That's our version. Yeah, so I mean, that's just a little bit of how you would use TypeScript in your routes and in your controllers. And usually when I have model hooks with parameters, so like if we had version, right? This wouldn't work in a application route, but in a different route, we could, if we had something like this and there was a version in the URL, I would type that with a params interface and export that as well. So that would yeah, so then we could use that. And then if you are using things like model 4 or other APIs from a different route, you could import this. That's why I would export that. But we don't actually take advantage of that here. I'm just gonna comment that out for now, or just remove that. Okay, so the next thing is this usually trips me up. Let's create another route, I guess. Let's see. We call it. Well, we can just do. We'll just create a version route, kind of like what I was just showing an example of. And so that's good. Let me go back here into the router. I'll add a version on here. We can use that same kind of setup in the version routes directory there. And let's see here. We can do return this model for patient, which returns. So let me. And so this would be a change log. So we would have to model 4 does not know about the type. That's not part of I guess part of the types for Ember yet. So we would do change log and import that. Did I not? Otherwise, that's not coming up. So let's just import that manually. Okay. See. Yeah, so never used. And we'll just return log. How is it? It's just behaving weird. I think my TypeScript might have died. Hold on. So restart the TypeScript server. Do that. That was, by the way, Command-Shift-P, and then restart TS. You type that in, and you get some. I wonder if my import was incorrect. I think that looks correct. Wonder what I'm missing here. Not very clear to me. Find. Okay, so I mean that's correct. So type Interesting. Oh, okay. So this is the reason this isn't working is because we need to say as changelog, which in that case we don't. This is complaining. Okay, ESLint again. So now, okay, now it's correct. So yeah, so it's kind of coming over. So the reason we have to do that is because even though we say changelog is of type changelog, model 4 returns an any, and so there's the type mismatch there, and so that's why we weren't getting the correct types for changelog after this line. So you're basically kind of casting the type, so as changelog. It's not great. I wish model 4 would just work. I think in the future that might happen. But so here we would have actually this should return content, which we don't export in our application route. So let me export that. And I would probably name that a little better in the future, but changelog and content. Let's see why that's not. Because it could be undefined. So content or undefined. So, I mean, this is the reason why you use TypeScript. So I mean, that could have been undefined, and I would not have caught that, and I've been confused why something wasn't working because I expected it to be there, but it wasn't. So little details like that. Let's see, version HBS. We'll just do the model dot body and do h1 version, and I'll put this in the p tag. Okay, so we have, so let me just copy this there. Let's try it out. There we go. We have some data. And so now let me go back and I'll show you kind of how services work. This is the thing that usually stumps me. So in the application controller, we're gonna, so the way to, so usually we use a link to, but for this example, we use the router service. And I usually do service router. And so, I mean, to type that, so let me just do the import here. Object as service. Okay, so, but the router, the built-in router service needs to have types, and the way you can find that, which I always forget, is it's on the registry. Registry, which is in the same place, and then to do that, and router. This is something I forget very often. And I will do exclamation here because that's defined. And we just have a ESLint complaining. So, so now we have the router defined. Let's create an action and open version and version here. Import the action. Okay. The imports usually don't work very well. Okay, so we can define our type here. And we'll do this router dot. This should actually autocomplete. Now we have some kind of error here. The identifier. What am I doing wrong here? I have a typo somewhere. Of course, I have that. I mean, I'm in the process of writing it. I'm not sure why the router is not working. I think RTS again. Let's see. So transition to okay. I mean, it came up. And then we'll do version, and we'll pass in the version. And so, in our application template, we can create a use a button. So don't do this normally, just because this is a example. Usually you want to use an anchor tag. Open version. Do that. Bring this in here. And we actually need to provide the version here. So we wrap that in a function which binds the version. And close that. Okay. So yeah, normally use link to or a anchor tag. And yeah, I would do that. How are you? And if I was writing an actual app, what's going on here? So that's why it wasn't working right. This is not a registry export. Okay. There's an E. There's registry. Okay, is it working now? Yeah, so I mean that's still kind of built in. I don't know what's going on here. Restart that real quick. Hopefully that just works. That was really weird. No. Okay. Go to the type definitions. Let's see if that. Nope, see no type definitions. Inspect. It says there's an interface. Why is it not? Oh, I wonder if these are old types. Interesting. Let's see our types. 316.3. Let me update that. Oh, I wonder what's going on there. So I think my code was correct, but it looks like either there's a bug in one of the types, or it's pulling down the wrong types. So hold on. A little debugging here. TypeScript version 3.7. Okay, this looks. Oops. Ember service. Let's go in here. Jump in here. 316.1. And let me just install this instead of depending on something else to install it. Let's see if it gets the same, gives me the same result. 316.1, it's the same. Yeah, that's really weird. That should be okay. I mean, I guess I'll have to if you're going to GitHub and figure that out. Why that's not working. Looks like I'm gonna bug somewhere. Yeah, so I mean, but that's how you would do it. And so for sake of this building, we'll do any and remove the registry here and start it up again. And there's our button. If let me just go back, our button's there, click that, and transitions. Yeah, I wanted to show that, didn't really work out, but I mean, those are some of the basics. If you have any specific questions, yeah, I mean, even Ember data models can be typed. You can do the class syntax for those. That works pretty well. Here, there's some work about getting get with like a dot notation to type as well. Chris Kryko is working on that. There's a post on Twitter about it. So yeah, it's really cool. If you have types from your server to your client, huge benefits there. It takes a little bit to get that set up. Last thing I just wanted to show is your TS config here. So you can tweak this to however you want. You got like how strict it is. I would recommend starting with the strictest if you can. You can also add paths, so like our app / resolves to the app folder. Also includes these different directories for actual .ts files. So your test can be TypeScript, and obviously types. And then here in the types folder, we have our app and index. And here you can define some other global types for your app. I recommend that if you need to do that. And then if you need to declare a module, you can create a folder here for that module. Before we used fetch, and that was highlighted red. So we would have created any fetch type, which actually probably would have just installed at types / fetch for that. But that's really it. Kind of rambling here, so I hope you enjoy this. See you later.